Hey everyone, welcome back. So there are a few things in life that are for certain. 1, death. 2, taxes. And number 3, when you buy an old tractor, you have to sort through the cobbled mess of wiring that the past 50 years of owners have left on that tractor, trying to change things, modify things. Anyway, you've always got cracked up insulation, wrong colored wires, anyway, all of that stuff. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how I went and made a couple of new wiring harnesses for my John Deere 830. Hopefully you find this useful. And what I'm showing you on an 830 is applicable to basically any two-cylinder John Deere tractor that was made from the 30s all the way into the 60s. So stay tuned. So this is my John Deere Model A that I purchased, a long time ago. I did a full restoration on this, rebuilt everything, and there's several videos on that. And right now it actually has a different front end on it. I put this Roll-O-Matic front end on it rather than the single front tire that usually would have come on this, being a high clearance Model AN. But when I did this, I went through and I built this wiring harness. Like I say, this is not a complicated wiring harness, but I put on this sheathing to help it, to help resist chafing and things like that, wearing through the wires. And then I also put some really thick, heavy-duty heat shrink on everything, so that then this wiring harness, when it leaves the generator and goes up here inside the hood and runs all the way back here to the dash, that all of the vibrations of the tractor, it's not going to cause any issues with, like I say, with chafing or these wires wearing through. I don't want to have a fire hazard. So moving from my Model A, we're actually going to be, the candidate tractor for today's video, where I'm building a wiring harness, is my John Deere 830 Industrial. This is a little bit more complicated because not only do I have a couple wires running up here to my generator, but I also have a separate harness that feeds power to the pony motor. So the first step in what I do, I'm not a professional, but the first step that I do is I go over here and I look at the wiring diagrams. So right here, we've got a picture of the tractor, bird's eye view of the tractor, and from the dash, you can see these two wiring harnesses, letter B and letter D. They go up to the generator, like I said, and to the cranking motor. Those are the only two that I'm going to be worrying about in this video. Now, moving from this, you have basically the entire wiring harness for the whole tractor, and it can be overwhelming if you're not used to looking at them, but if you just kind of break it down, it's not too bad. And I've tried to simplify this kind of a little bit more complicated diagram, separate it out into the individual harnesses. And I'll put some pictures of those here in the video. Now, unfortunately, the backside of the dashboard on an 830 is kind of complicated. You got quite a bit of wiring going on. So I've got these three wires separated out. These are the wires that go to the starting engine. You've got a green wire going to your distributor. A blue wire on the 830 goes to your starting engine, the starter on the starting engine, and then the black wire goes to the starter solenoid. Into the generator, off of the ammeter and off of the fuel gauge switch, you've got a number 10 wire, this white number 10 wire, and also your black. This is just a black number 12. I'm using number 12 and number 10 wiring for all of this. It might be a little bit overkill, but I think it's better to be a little bit big than a little bit small. So after you kind of get rough lengths cut and hooked up to your dashboard, let's go stick this dashboard onto the tractor and then pull everything out and let's finalize our lengths. Okay, what I've decided I'm going to be doing is I'm going to combine both of these harnesses into a single piece of shrink wrap up to about here where they split off, and then I'm going to take the cranking motor harness off, and then we're going to just continue with the the generator harness all the way forward. And so I'm measuring from the dashboard all the way up here. This is where I'm going to kind of use this power steering filler neck as kind of like a support or a tie off with some zip ties. And that's from the dashboard up to here is 32 inches. So I'll just subtract a couple of inches. We'll go 30 inches. We'll go 30 inches and then slide all of the wiring into that big single piece of heat shrink. Now that I have a 30 or 32 inch long piece of heat shrink, I just got to start feeding everything in here. I notice I don't have any connectors on the ends of any of these wires because I'm going to do that next after I get everything kind of measured to length. So let's kind of do this right now. This is going to be a little bit tedious, but we'll get it taken care of. Like I said, this is kind of tedious. You're basically just kind of pushing on a rope, trying to get all of these wires fed through this big piece. Oh good, I got it. Now I've got everything, all of the wires, except for the green one, pulled through here. So we'll keep going. Okay, I've got that first piece in, and then I just continued to use a little bit smaller heat shrink to take these two wires all the way up to the generator, and then these three wires broke off to go down to the starting motor. So let's pull this whole harness out now, and let's start shrinking all of that heat shrink and getting everything permanent. Okay, I used the heat gun on these two extensions, the piece that goes to the generator, and then this short little piece. Now I'm going to slide this big piece over both of those, and we're going to heat shrink that to kind of encapsulate everything. That'll do a pretty good job. Okay, it doesn't look like much now, but I do think that that is a lot tidier with just this single harness coming off. It splits out here rather than having, 8 different wires coming out of that. So now I'm going to use this. This is kind of like braided, I don't know what you want to call it, but you kind of push it together and it gets big, so you can fit big stuff in it. Anyway, and then it kind of shrinks down, and this is really good chafing protection stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slide this onto the entire harness. Okay, I came pretty close to guessing the right length here because I am only going to trim off probably only about 2 inches on each one of these wires. Maybe I won't even trim any off of the black wire. I'll just trim some off of this white wire, and I'll go ahead and strip this, and I will solder the connections on. And I'll show you how I solder the connections on. So one thing that I like to do is I actually buy these big, huge, heavy-duty ring terminals. I buy these online from DigiKey. They're really cheap. They're only, they're pennies, versus these are the ones that you buy from like O'Reilly or AutoZone, and they're just super thin. Let's see if you can tell the difference between the two. You can just see how much more heavy duty these ones are than the ones from O'Reilly. So anyway, I buy these heavy duty ones, and then I solder these in place. Okay, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dip this in a little bit of flux. The solder I'm using has flux in it, but this just helps everything flow a little bit better. Now let's put the heat shrink on. Slide that in place. Okay, now let's solder this in place. I'm going to squeeze that a little bit with a pair of pliers just to kind of hold it in place, but then the solder is really what's going to lock it in place. Okay, so that's kind of held in place for right now. Now let's just solder this real quick. I'm going to go get a piece of wood. Hold on a second. Usually I do this on a bench. Let me zoom in here, see if you can see better. Okay. So I'm just going to hold this right there. Let it get warm. Put a little bit of solder in there. It should be getting hot soon. See? And then okay. That is good and tight now. I'll let this cool a little bit. See? I'll let that cool a little bit, and then I will slide the heat shrink down. I'll do the same thing on this number 12 wire as well. So there it is. It's all put back together. All of that harness is tied up out of the way. And while it may not be the most exciting video, I am very glad to have all of that wiring. You know, you don't have a huge rat's nest of wires up underneath that cowl anymore. Everything's tidy and put together. Well, that's going to do it for this video. I'm going to put the hood back on this, get this thing started up and backed out of here. And then at the very end of this, I will put pictures and screenshots of all of the wiring diagrams for all of the different tractors that I have. And so hopefully if you have any of those, or if you need any of those wiring diagrams, you can get them. Thanks for watching, guys, as always, and I will see you next week with another video. So what I have here is my service manual. I bought this from my Model A. I just bought this on eBay. I probably paid 50 bucks for this, but it's a really good reference because it has not only information pertaining to the A, but it has information pertaining to pretty much all of the old letter series tractors and even up into the number series too. Anyway, in here it's got a section for all of the electrical wiring. It has diagrams for all of the tractors. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take some pictures, and you can feel free to pause and look at all of the pictures, but it just goes through, I mean, Model D, Model G, Model R. So feel free to pause. Oh, this is a Model M. See, look at that nice diagram. It shows the whole wiring harness. That would have been nice to have when I was doing my 830. But anyway, yeah, feel free to just pause the video and look at the information you need. This is mostly, like I say, this is mostly just a reference for people who are looking to get the electrical wiring diagrams for their tractors.